The other grandparent, Shannon, was the last person to see the 4-year-old on the evening of September 27, when he was playing in the sand outside the family homestead at 5 p.m. When she went to call him at 5:30 p.m., he was gone.
We've heard Shannon Murray, Gus's grandmother, trying to placate Josie during Shotgun Gate.
Who are you?
I'm with the media.
Out!
Anticipating a ruckus, Shannon says, I've asked them to leave, and that seems to be true because the reporter repeats twice, I was leaving. Let's listen to that again.
Who are you?
I'm with the media.
Out!
I was leaving.
Get out!
I was leaving.
Shut your face and get out! We'll have the police on you because you've been warned not to come here. Now get out!
I haven't been here
Get
before.
out!
Now the interesting thing is that if Josie just stayed put, did nothing, said nothing, the reporter would have left anyway. She was leaving anyway. No harm, no foul. But it seems Josie wanted to make her presence felt in no uncertain terms, which is worth noting, and which I think reveals who wears the pants and how this person runs the show at the station.
Just before noon on a quiet outback station, a moment barely long enough to blink became the center of one of Australia's most perplexing mysteries. The last person to see 4-year-old Gus Lamont says the child was standing only a few steps away. And then, within minutes, he was gone. No sound, no sign, no trace. And now, newly reviewed footage and inconsistencies buried in the original timeline are forcing investigators to re-examine everything they thought they knew. Fresh analysis is revealing blind spots, missing minutes, and unexplained gaps that raise one difficult question: what truly happened in the final moments before Gus vanished? Today, we're looking directly at the new evidence, not the past headlines, and uncovering the details that are reshaping this investigation. Before we dive into this story, remember, this is Detective Kate, True Crime, a channel that stands for justice and giving every case the attention it deserves. Drop a comment and let me know where you're watching from. Hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on the bell so you don't miss any of our investigations. And don't forget, share your thoughts and theories below. Every clue counts. From the moment the last sighting was recorded, investigators expected the timeline to unfold with clean, uninterrupted precision. But when peer review teams began cross-checking the logs, a series of gaps immediately stood out, gaps that should not exist in a controlled search environment. The first issue appears within minutes of the final sighting. A 5-minute window contains no confirmed visual verification, no radio pings, and no synced body cam markers from the personnel closest to the scene. That window, though brief, is large enough for movement across multiple directions. And yet there is no digital trail explaining what happened during it. Next are the timestamp discrepancies. Drone footage, vehicle dash cams, and ground team GPS trackers should align to the second. Instead, analysts found moments where devices appear to jump, lag, or desync entirely, not by hours, but by just enough to obscure a clear sequence of events. The kind of inconsistency that forces investigators to ask whether the technology misfired or whether key moments simply weren't captured. Then there is the search grid anomaly. On paper, the patterns look complete, but the peer review overlay revealed 2 narrow corridors, both running parallel to the homestead boundary, where movements and sweeps do not match the documented coverage. No camera footage aligns with those corridors, no GPS trail confirms them, and no personnel can definitively say whether those lines were cleared or missed in the rush of the early response. None of this proves anything, but all of it disrupts the expectation that the timeline should be airtight. Instead, investigators are now examining not only where Gus could have gone, but how the record of those crucial minutes became so fragmented. When investigators shifted their attention from ground reports to archived footage, the expectation was simple: the videos would confirm the timeline, reinforce movements, and close the gaps. Instead, the newly reviewed material did the opposite. The drone recordings, originally dismissed as routine aerial sweeps, contained brief moments where the camera's angle dipped lower than the logged flight pattern. These dips created narrow visual pockets, showing slivers of terrain previously marked as cleared. In those pockets, analysts found no sign of Gus. But they did find evidence of search team positioning that didn't match the written notes. Individuals appear in locations they were not recorded as entering. Vehicles shift between points without corresponding GPS trails. Nothing overtly suspicious, but enough to complicate the reconstruction of that afternoon. Ground team GoPros added another layer of uncertainty. Several clips include audio cues without visual confirmation, suggesting personnel met or communicated in areas not reflected in radio logs. A single moment, just 3 seconds of static and muffled voices, prompted analysts to review the entire sequence frame by frame. Still, no image of Gus. And yet, the inconsistencies reveal moments where the search perimeter was not as controlled as the documentation suggested. Then came the dashcam files. One vehicle's footage showed a passing utility truck at a time when no such movement was recorded on the master timeline. The truck doesn't stop, it doesn't behave irregularly, it simply appears, then disappears from the frame. Investigators are not treating it as suspicious, but its presence raises new questions about the accuracy of the logs. None of the footage captures Gus. But all of it points to the same conclusion. Key moments in the search environment were never fully documented or were unintentionally misaligned, and in a case this fragile, even minor inconsistencies carry significant weight. When analysts flagged the inconsistencies in the footage, the focus shifted toward one location that had quietly remained a point of debate: the dam. Not because of direct evidence pointing toward it, but because its proximity to the final sighting made it impossible to rule out. And so, in an unusually extensive operation, authorities approved the full drainage of nearly 3.2 million liters of water. The procedure was meticulous. Pumps ran for hours, reducing the water level in controlled stages to prevent turbulence from disturbing the sediment below. Specialists examined the banks as the water receded, scanning for fabric fibers, footprints, or displaced soil patterns. Meanwhile, sonar imaging mapped the dam floor in real time to detect any irregular shapes beneath the surface. Once the water reached a safe level, dive teams entered. Their task wasn't simply to look, it was to feel the environment. Every ridge, every soft patch of silt, every object that the water might have concealed. Their search path formed a tight grid, overlapping strokes designed to eliminate blind spots. But despite the scale, the precision, and the expectation that the dam could hold answers, the result was absolute. Nothing. No clothing, no toys, no signs of disturbance, no physical indicator that Gus had ever been near the water. For investigators, the outcome created a paradox. The dam was one of the most logical, accessible, and immediate locations to check. Eliminating it should have brought clarity. Instead, the absence of evidence only widened the scope of uncertainty, deepening the question of where Gus could have gone in such a short span of time. With the dam ruled out and the footage revealing more inconsistencies than answers, the investigation moved into a new phase, one driven not by assumptions but by expert recalibration. A fourth search is now under active consideration, but not in the same pattern as the previous operations. This time, specialists from multiple fields are feeding new data into the decision. Survivability experts have reevaluated environmental conditions from the day Gus vanished, temperature fluctuations, wind vectors, hydration windows, and the behavior patterns of young children in open terrain. Their analysis has challenged early assumptions about how far a 4-year-old could realistically travel, and in which direction he would most likely move under stress, disorientation, or curiosity. Medical consultants added another layer, reviewing developmental patterns and situational responses typical for children Gus's age. Their models suggest that subtle environmental cues, shade, open space, identifiable objects, could influence movement more than distance alone. That insight has shifted attention toward areas previously considered low priority. Terrain specialists, meanwhile, are mapping new flow paths across the property. Using updated satellite imagery and corrected GPS trails, they've recreated potential movement corridors that weren't included in the original grid. These paths reveal unnoticed depressions, animal tracks, and erosion lines that may have altered visibility during the initial search. SA Police Commissioner Grant Stevens emphasized that a fourth search is not guaranteed, but the data being analyzed now is more refined, more targeted, and more precise than at any earlier point. If the operation is approved, it will be built entirely around these new models. The goal is no longer to repeat the previous search, it is to redefine it. The final sighting of Gus, the brief moment that anchors the entire investigation is now undergoing its most detailed review to date. Not because the witness is under suspicion, but because investigators need absolute clarity. In a case built on minutes, even a small misinterpretation can widen the search direction by kilometers. The witness's statement has been compared line by line against newly reviewed footage, internal radio logs, and GPS movement records. Most of the account aligns with the general timeline, but analysts identified subtle deviations that require closer attention. In the statement, the witness places themselves at a fixed point near a series of outbuildings. But dashcam shadows and drone angles suggest they may have been positioned several meters to the west during the final confirmed moment. It's a minor shift, but it changes the geometry of what the witness could see and what they couldn't. There is also a discrepancy involving sound. The witness describes hearing movement in the distance shortly after noticing Gus was no longer nearby. However, radio logs show that two team members were passing through the same corridor at roughly the same time, which raises the possibility that the sound had nothing to do with Gus at all. Then there's the question of the missing minutes. Between the sighting and the first internal alert, there is a gap where neither the witness's position nor their movements are fully supported by digital records. They may have simply been off-grid, in a blind spot not covered by cameras or trackers, but the absence forces investigators to treat this period with heightened scrutiny. Still, police emphasize the same point. The witness has cooperated fully, provided consistent accounts, and remains central only because their information marks the last confirmed moment Gus was seen. The scrutiny is procedural, yes, not accusatory. It's the timeline, not the person. Under examination. Even after weeks of analysis, cross-checking, and renewed searches, the disappearance of Gus Lamont leaves more questions than answers. The inconsistencies in footage, the gaps in the timeline, and the areas missed or misaligned in earlier searches create a pattern of uncertainty that investigators cannot ignore. How did the timestamps shift in multiple independent devices? Why did the largest search in South Australia fail to produce a single physical trace? Which movements went undocumented during those critical minutes? And most importantly, what could the new corridors identified by terrain specialists reveal about where Gus may have gone? Experts caution against speculation, but the evidence itself raises critical investigative points. Each gap, each blind spot, each misaligned log is a potential clue. And ignoring them could delay finding answers that the family and community desperately need. Police continue to coordinate with survivability analysts, environmental specialists, and search strategists, refining their approach to make the next operation as targeted and precise as possible. For now, the case rests in a delicate balance, a combination of human observation, technology, and careful reasoning. Until new evidence emerges, the mystery of Gus Lamont's final moments remains unsolved, a haunting question mark in the heart of the Australian outback. And as investigators continue their work, every second, every movement, and every missing piece of data carries significance.